So 7-Zip has been very reluctant, or rather the creator of 7-Zip has been very reluctant to add this feature called Mark of the Web, which has some pretty important security implications on Windows computers. I do not use Windows computers, so I kind of had to read up about this. But the basic point of it is that if you download a file from the internet, then it will open in a different mode on a Windows computer, rather than if you create it yourself, or if it's installed by a program locally on your computer.
Like a protected.
Yeah, like a protected format. So like if you open it, it'll first run this dialog, and it'll be like, do you want to make changes to your device? Do you want to run it? And then it'll open it in a sandbox, depending on what type of file it is and what it's being opened in. So these mark of the webs are something that by default allow you to be a little bit more protected by default, by disallowing something that came from a foreign source that might potentially be infected with something. And this sort of like heuristic control is something that you can do in order to lock down some of the most vulnerable processes or ways that people are likely to infect a computer, and make it so if it came from the internet, it's less likely to do damage. Now, obviously, you can undo this stuff, and you can like you could right mouse click on it, and then like down here, unblock a file in order to remove the mark of the web. But that mark is something that for average users really does provide a lot of security. So how could you as an attacker get around that? Well, 7-Zip. So if I wanted to zip a file and then send it to someone, when they unzip that file, the creator of 7-Zip decided that they did not want to enable transferring that mark of the web to the files that were unzipped. So anything that I download from a zip archive and then unpack, all the files inside there would be running completely unrestricted, because the computer wouldn't see a mark of the web and would think like, oh, these are perfectly fine to run in normal mode, which is more privileged. So, a lot of threat actors started then zipping their files. And if the person was using 7-Zip in order to unzip it, they would proceed to get a bunch of files that would not be run in the same secure context that any other downloaded file would be. So this was a big argument. And the maintainer of 7-Zip was just like, you know what, the overhead for this proprietary code for Windows, the zone identifier string for each file is not good in some cases. And he was just like, not going to do it. And then finally last week, he was just like, okay, fine. But it's not on by default. So
Nice.
That's what I love about this. So he was finally like, okay, I am actually causing an issue that threat actors are taking advantage of. This is now like a standard known way of like evading at least some of the protections that Windows like affords. So I guess I'll add support for it. But because he doesn't like this feature, rather than have it on by default on like Windows devices, proprietary devices, sorry, he instead makes it so you have to go through this friggin' propagate zone ID stream
What an
drop
ugly
down.
menu.
Yes, which by default is set to no. So the end of the story is still by default on 7-Zip, it does not apply the mark of the web, because the developer doesn't like it and doesn't feel like it's something that he should include. But if you are on a shared computer or on your own computer and you want to set this so that a more novice user doesn't accidentally open a zip file that is from a malware author that then is unpacked and opened, you can set this manually. Hooray! Pat on the back. So seeing this kind of like half implemented solution is really disappointing, because there's an opportunity here to close like a loophole that like actually really can cause people problems, because like macros are disabled, for example, by default when something has the mark of the web, which means that if you were trying to attack someone with a macro-based attack, all you would need to do is pack it inside a zip file. And if they unpack it with 7-Zip, then boom, you no longer have that level of protection. So a little bit disappointing to see this, but that's the news. They rolled out the feature, but did not enable it by default. So most people are not going to see much of a difference in terms of security.
That's like a complete non-issue to fix. Also, especially, I haven't gotten to look into that attack a lot, but that could probably be used in conjunction with for example, the new Falina attack, which I know is Microsoft Word based. But the premise of that one is that the document can be used essentially as a stager that calls for an HTML template, like for an HTML Word template, that's able to execute arbitrary code somehow inside the user's Windows environment, just using like a document that's like downloaded directly on their computer. And it can do like a whole bunch of scary stuff. But I think this is ridiculous, though.
Yeah, it's too bad, honestly. But he doesn't like proprietary computers. He just wants Linux. What can I say?